Good afternoon. Walton County Sheriff Mike Adkinson, along here with Ms. Corey DeBridney, our Public Information Officer, and this is the Sheriff Live. So we've been away for a hot minute, Corey. We'll do our perfunctory intro, if you will. If you don't know where Walton County, Florida is at, we're halfway between Pensacola and Tallahassee. We run from the Alabama line to the coast. From Paxton to Rosemary Beach, from Miramar to Darlington, and all points in between. So Northwest Florida, about 1,200 square miles of some of the, I think, the most beautiful country in the world, and we're glad to be with you. This is my meeting for my bosses, the citizens of Walton County, the stakeholders. And if you're joining us from somewhere else, this is where we try to answer questions about, typically what's going on in the county, but we will answer any questions you have. So two things. I can't guarantee that we'll be right or that I'll know an answer, but I can guarantee that we'll get you one. And then the other caveat is I always try really hard. I can say 100% that you're not going to offend me. There's a 50-50 shot that I may offend you. I will try not to do so. So since my bosses are watching, that's certainly not a good thing. A lot of things have happened since the last time we've been online. Some kind of cool stuff. We're upgrading a little bit here in our studio. Hopefully the audio has been the bane of our existence for about the last 5 years.
It better not be right now.
If it is, I mean, Corey may go jump in the middle of Highway 98. We think we've solved that problem, and hopefully, this is an upgrade. This is something you guys have asked for, and we've, here at the WCSO studios, we've got it going on in here. So we think it's pretty cool. And Corey, how are you liking it so far?
I'm loving it, and good. I think that. The audio is going to be really good. You get to see me now.
Yeah, wow, there's Corey. Wow.
Fancy.
Hey, yeah,
and I think we're going to be able to go live on multiple platforms. So Walton County Sheriff's Office Twitter account, YouTube, and Facebook. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we're live on all three at the same time.
And I think we ought to put this caveat in there. We don't dodge questions. If you ask a question, we will try to answer it. But Corey doesn't always see them, too. Sometimes they roll faster than we can get to them. So,
I've solved that.
We may have solved it. I was giving her an excuse,
it's right
and
here.
she threw it out.
So there's no excuse anymore.
Yeah, there's no excuse. So anyway. Obviously, if you have a question, feel free to ask. All joking aside, if we don't know the answer, we'll try very diligently to get you an answer. We're all kind of in our post-election hangover. How about that? Mm-hmm. So, hopefully your candidate won. But the most important thing is that you got out there and you participated in the process. Kind of a big deal. And so, I don't know what the total turnout in Walton County was. I was told it was around 40%, but I haven't actually verified that myself. But I know there was a lot of people, which is really good. That's a good stuff. So
great turnout.
Yeah. Corey, what we got?
So the first one is from Warren Henderson.
That's fast. Bam.
We already have a few. He said, what about the watercolor break-in? Let's start off with that.
What watercolor break-in?
The house party.
Oh, okay. So we'll back up a little bit. That was for those of you that may or may not remember, that is where someone advertised a party at a home in watercolor, invited 200 of their closest friends, advertised it for about a week prior, which is obviously incredibly odd for that to be going on that way. Number of subpoenas have still been out. They've been out for almost 4.5 months now. We're a little bit at the mercy of our friends in social media and honoring those subpoenas. We're still moving forward with that. So, hopefully that'll be able to resolve some of that. At the end of the day, we say this because I know a lot of people want every kid in their charge. We're not going to charge any kid in that building except the people responsible or those that committed a crime. That's what the state has said. We talked to the prosecutors about it. But yeah, so hopefully we get some subpoenas back and we're able to resolve who planned that party. I mean, that's obviously something's going on.
Talk a little bit about why that is. So you have to be able to prove that they knew they weren't supposed to be there.
Yeah, so the vast majority, you have to understand, this was an advertised party for over a week in advance. So it's exceedingly odd that they knew the family was going to be out of town, which means they had to have some knowledge of the family being gone. But, everybody you see there is not there illegally, and that's an important point to think. They didn't have the permission to be there, but all those people aren't committing a crime. The people that committed the crime is going to be the person that advertised it. That's who we're trying to figure out who arranged this. And so it's more important to be right with this than it is to be fast.
Great. Right. The next one is just hello. Kathy is joining us from Okaloosa County.
Outstanding.
And Noah says the audio's clean. We're so glad.
Wow, it's about
Alyssa
time.
said audio sounds great. And Will says need to solve the audio for all the county meetings. Well, I can tell you that
Hey, we're
we
not
gotta
miracle
take care-
workers. We don't. Nobody's parting the Red Sea here. Trust me.
Everybody said Justin Cook, Katie Hamilton said audio sounds great. So
That's good.
Brian Campbell says, is there a way to get better looking uniforms? New, better looking uniforms. I think our uniforms are great.
So we literally went about 2.5 years looking for uniforms. And I know everybody's sick of the word COVID, but the supply issue was so bad, it took us, probably 2.5, bordering on 3 years to get an upgrade even in the materials we were doing. So obviously we'll always consider taking a different look. There has to be green in that uniform, but Florida law says that a deputy sheriff, the color forest or hunter green, if you will, is reserved for the office of the sheriff. Just like you'll see a 5-point star, that is only to be worn by a deputy sheriff. That's in Florida statute, so you have to have that color in there. As far as what the rest of it looks like, that's open to design. So if you got a great design, or if you have a great uniform suggestion, send it to us. We'll take a look at it.
And from what I'm hearing from the deputies, the new lighter fabric is fantastic.
Yeah, but I think he was. I took it that he was asking more of a stylish uniform, something.
I like the traditional look.
Yeah, well, so listen, we're always open to looking at it. So we're absolutely for sure.
And maybe that's something we can put out to the public, poll the public.
Yeah. So actually, as part of that, one of the things you and I were talking about earlier, Corey, was that Walton County's 200th anniversary is coming up in 2024, and so one of the things we're going to do is obviously try to design a badge for our personnel, for our fire rescue and sheriff's deputies to commemorate 200 years of Walton County, which is kind of cool. But that's something you have to design earlier. That's not something you can wait till the end of 23. So we're going to start looking at that as well too. Kind of a neat thing.
Might go old school.
Yeah, maybe
might go old school.
Cool.
Sheriff's got a picture of a badge from the 50s.
Yeah, the 50s. Actually, we got one from Sheriff Kurt Miller back in the days, which I think was really, his son and daughter provided us a picture of that badge, which we think is pretty neat. So maybe find some way to tie that in there.
Yeah. Denise Turney says, can we get a speed limit lighted sign that tells how fast the car is going? They speed so much in front of the Tom Thumb in Seagrove. That's a great question. I'm not sure. What I really think is effective is the ones that flash red and blue when you drive past them too fast.
So that comes up. Yeah, we'll mention that to your district lieutenant. Have them put something out there and see about doing that.
Yeah, your district lieutenant.
And by the way, I probably need to look at what the speed is there, because I don't know if it's 25 or 30 there.
In front of the Tom, it would be 30A.
If it's 30, it's too fast. I mean, that's one of the problems that happens. That speed in and of itself can be too fast, particularly if you're dealing with pedestrians. So
sure. Tim Fowler, I'm a certified officer in Tennessee. What would I need to do to transfer to Walton County?
So great. Walton County has an equivalency of training. We would actually put you, assuming that it was a good fit and you wanted to be with us, we would actually take you on, put you on the payroll, do your background stuff and get everything taken care of, send you to equivalency of training, which is about 2 weeks, to make sure that that it lines up. And I think there's reciprocity with the state of Tennessee, so it should be about a 2-week crossover, but we actually put you on while that's doing and go from there. And there is actually a hiring bonus going on right now of $10,000 for deputy sheriffs. Part of that is funded by the state of Florida, just because of a shortage that we're having. So it's definitely something to consider. That's to assist with your moving expenses and trying to get qualified men and women down here.
Jan Hanish is asking, how would we go about getting all the crosswalks with blinking lights on 30A? It really helps see pedestrians at night. Thank you in advance.
So 100%. We absolutely agree with you. I think every crosswalk on 30A should be striped and lighted like it is in Rosemary Beach. It's just not, and we would love to have that done. So the county, the Board of County Commissioners, their Public Works, they're the ones that could have that done. That I could not agree with you anymore. I think that's super important.
Does that have something to do with the
turtles? I don't. I'm going to get myself.
I'm
in
not sure if it's a
answer.
scenic corridor. If there's a lighting,
I don't know the answer to that because there are
30A is a county road.
Right, it is, and there are some of the pedestrian walks are very well marked. So if you can do it in one location, I think you can do it for the whole thing. But we'll certainly ask the BCC. We'll forward an email. We try very hard when you ask us questions to go ahead and forward it to whoever. If we're not the responsible party, we try to forward it to them and then get an answer back to you. So, but I think if you'll check with we'll check for you. the Board of County Commissioners who was responsible and get you an answer next time we're on the air.
Yeah. Noah Custer, was there any updates on the remains found in Miramar?
Yeah, so that obviously those remains had been there pretty much an extended period, multiple years. And with that, we're doing some DNA sampling and have sent that off to have the remains examined and looked and to see, what we can do to try and find some DNA matches. You and I were talking about there's actually a statutory preclusion against running against criminal database, which is, so we can't even use any of the criminal database in there, which might have helped locate that person. But we are going to run it against all known existing databases that we legally can. And we'll see. We hope to bring closure to somebody's family and resolve that issue. But it would not shock me to find out that individual had been there prior to 2018. Mm-hmm. We think it had been at least that long. So you're talking 4 or 5 years at this point.
Yeah. Great question. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Love seeing the success story about Chris Carroll's release and job. Still wondering if we have some statistics on the vocational programs at the jail. The welding program's been going on for over 4 years now. Surely we must have some numbers that we can look at overall success of the program.
So one of the things that is proving to be a little bit challenging is that individuals, once they graduate, have to voluntarily maintain contact with us. So while we try to reach back out and say, hey, we want to know how you're doing, what's happening, it has been a little challenging getting some continued communication after they're released from the jail. So we have a pretty good idea of if they have a job when they first come out. What we don't know is what's happening since then, because quite frankly, they don't want the sheriff's office calling about their business. So that's actually proved to be the biggest challenge. So hopefully our partnership with Florida State, that they will be more willing to communicate with the university, maybe then with the sheriff's office, and to give us some idea. But that's actually the biggest problem, is locating people once they're released. I mean, that is really an issue. What we can measure, and so far we think is pretty good anecdotally, is whether or not you come back to jail. That's what we're at. That's the one thing I know that we can look at. And so that's what we're going to use as an immediate. It doesn't tell us how well the program's working. It does tell us whether or not you've come back to jail. So it's a long way of saying we're having a hard time tracking people down after they're released. And hopefully that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
I'm not going to try to pronounce the first name, but John Billy is asking, are the deputies participating in No Shave November this year? No.
So, no, they're actually not, because after what I consider immense pressure, unreasonable pressure, I finally gave in and allowed them to have beards. So they have beat me down to the point that So
they're doing no shave all year round.
Yeah, exactly.
So no need for
although
no
we
shave
were talking about, what to do, because being engaged and involved in your community, and so, everything from cancer awareness to autism awareness, there's a lot of things. Suicide prevention month, there's a lot of OD awareness. There's a lot of things that are, and they're
domestic violence.
Domestic violence are all so important, right? And so we're trying to figure out how to
champion one.
How to champion them, yeah, because the one I don't do is the one you will call me about and say, don't you care about X?
Right.
And we do. So we're just trying to find the right way to do this.
Yeah.
So
good balance. Veronica Benjamin, is there an outcome from the criminal citation with a mandatory court appearance, which was issued to the man who purposely ran over the road worker in Sandestin in September? So if you remember, I think you and I talked about this case.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
He was waiting. He was in a truck.
Right.
He went around. He was frustrated because he didn't want to wait any longer.
Mm-hmm.
He was issued a notice to appear, which is a felony citation.
Yeah, he
He's
was
got to go to
actually
court.
arrested.
Right.
Yeah. So.
And they want to know if there's been an update to that.
I have not heard the answer. And I apologize. I just don't follow the cases sometimes once they go past.
Yeah. And Veronica.
But, yeah, I will tell you, Veronica, you can actually look at the Walton County Circuit Clerk of Court,
yeah.
And you can see where that case is at in the system.
Yeah, if you want, you could ask for a public records request to get his name, and then you'd have to search him by name in the Clerk of Court's website. Yeah.
Now we won't know. The sheriff's office won't necessarily know what happened to him or where the court case is at. That's as it's working itself through the system. We don't actually have involvement past that. So
yeah. Jeff Jackson, I know your deputies have a heavy workload. I like to see more patrols on German Club Road and Landfill Road. When your deputies come through here, it's nice and quiet. I do thank y'all for what you do. I just said y'all, but he said it in the question.
Yeah, I know. That's okay. That's good. We actually had a pretty good arrest from our vice narcotics unit there about a month or two ago down on German Club Road as well. But absolutely, I'll make sure that we talk to your district lieutenant as well. Let me talk about the district lieutenants just for a second, because I think this is important.
Yes.
The county, because we're 1,200 square miles from a law enforcement side, and remember at the sheriff's office, we're law enforcement, we're the jail, we're fire rescue, which is north of the bay, which is EMS and fire. We are animal control for the whole county, and we are child protective investigations for the whole county. So obviously a lot of stuff going on. Mm-hmm. We divide the county up into districts, 4 districts, right? So everything basically north of Rock Hill is District 1, Defuniak to Paxton, if you will. And then Freeport, that's District 2, which is essentially from Bruce to Choctaw Beach, the county line over that way. And then south of the bay is divided at 331 into Districts 3 and 4, right?
Is it 331 or 393?
393. 393 into 2 districts. What I think is important about that, and the reason I bring it up, is so, for instance, we were talking about German Club Road.
Yeah.
Your district lieutenant, he and I were talking about this today, he's got 27 years on the job, all in Walton County, right? So he knows the people in the community that they're in, right? So your district lieutenant in Freeport has 25 years on the job, right? Your district lieutenant in District 3 or in District 4, the South End lieutenants, both of those guys are rocking 20 years on the job. That's important because they know the community they're working in. And that's something we work really hard to do, is to make sure that those men and women that are district lieutenants, that they know the community, they know the job, they know the philosophy of our sheriff's office, and it's important. And so, I'll go back to the fire rescue side of the house for a second. If you look at our chiefs and our deputy chiefs, all these men and women have multiple years experience here in Walton County. And I think that's so vitally important to producing good community service and good community outcomes.
They have a vested interest.
By the way, I would point out that, again, Walton County Fire Rescue is the top EMS service provider in the state of Florida, according to the Department of Health this year. Numero uno.
Yeah.
Number 1 in the state. Let me say that for the people in the back. The top in the state of Florida.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
And that's operating without an emergency room right now in our jurisdiction.
Yes, and there is that challenge.
And there's some challenges to that. Much different than
there's more than challenges. Obviously, it's from our standpoint, there's a significant risk to the citizens in Defuniak Springs and the surrounding area there. We're obviously very concerned about that. And every time I say that, somebody gets some type of political statement. And quite frankly, I don't care how you feel about it politically. I do care a whole bunch that when lives matter, minutes matter, lives matter, right? Mm-hmm. And not having an emergency room is completely unacceptable to me. So within my ability, and if this makes you mad, I'm really sorry about it, maybe not sorry, we have to keep creating noise, and we have to keep bringing this up, because we've got to resolve this issue. We've got to resolve this issue. The sheriff's office cannot solve the issue. Right? Fire rescue cannot solve the issue itself. But we were able to push a 7th ambulance into service. We were already planning that ambulance because we were busy.
Growing.
We had not added an ambulance 10 years. Almost 10 years we had not added one ambulance. We just added that 7th. That was a planned ambulance. But that was immediately mitigated by the emergency room collection. Now we have an 8th ambulance that we're working part-time. Ultimately we want to make that 8th ambulance full-time. But understand, you're talking about $1 million+ for every one of those ambulances. As fast as you put one in service, that's $1 million. And that's not going to solve the problem. We have to have an emergency room. So again, that's something important to reach out to anybody that you think can assist in this issue. We need an emergency room north of the bay.
And just think about how impressive it is, like different from a place like Miami or Jacksonville, where you just have to keep them. You have to, as a paramedic and EMT, you're just transporting them minutes away. Whereas if you're an EMT or a paramedic in a rural community, you're transporting them quite a bit further of a distance. Yeah.
100%.
Okay. Next question is about Michael Thames. Where did we end up catching him, and was it in Walton County? It was in Walton County. Michael Thames was the one that was wanted out of Florida LF for stalking.
Okay.
Yes, our task force, our U.S. Marshals task force caught up with him.
Yes.
And it was in Walton County. Yes. Cheyenne Woodard, can we get a speed bump in Choctaw Beach in front of my house? Speed limit 15 maybe. People are driving 25 down a dead-end road with children.
Yeah.
How would she go about getting
that's a
speed
Board of
bump?
County Commissioners thing. They're Public Works. But
Yep.
we're going to add this to the note to send to Public Works. And we're trying very diligently when you ask us a question that's outside of my purview to get an answer for you, to pass that along, and then to give you feedback next week. And if you want to send an email to Corey as well, too, we'll work on that.
And that my email is pinned to the top of this. It's pio@waltonso.org, and it's the top pin. Bo Wills says the county budget was a hot topic around yesterday's election. Did the sheriff's office run a deficit or surplus in 2021? What was that amount?
It was neither. We were on budget for 2021. So budget's always, I think that's one of those things that people should be like more engaged in and understand a lot more about it. I hear a lot of, I think even well-meaning people, by the way, inside the government and outside, that do not understand the basics of budget. And it can be a frustrating thing because it's complicated. It doesn't actually work like I want it to work. For instance, let me give you a rough example. We hear people all the time say, well, the sheriff's office is 70% of the county budget. I'm like, no, that's not actually true. And if it was, I'd have a Learjet. Because, the county budget is north of $260 million, right? The law enforcement side of the sheriff's office is about $60 million. So put that in perspective for us. It's our total budget is $70 million, but put that in perspective. All that doesn't come from the county. We're not just law enforcement. We're fire rescue, we're ambulance, we're animal control, the jail, the whole 9 yards. But even that is only 33% of ad valorem. And you say, well, or 33% of the county budget. Mm-hmm. And I had a guy tell me, so you're 70% of the county budget. I said, no, sir, that's absolutely not true. Mm-hmm. We're 67% of ad valorem. He goes, well, that's too much. I said, okay. What do you think it should be? I said, how about we go like Okaloosa? Okaloosa County, for instance, the jail and the sheriff's office alone is 105% of ad valorem.
And they don't run their jail.
They don't run the Holmes. That's correct. But counting the jail in there with it, mm-hmm. You got a Holmes County. They're 100+% of ad valorem. It's not uncommon for the sheriff's office and jail alone to be 100% of your ad valorem taxes. And this county, the jail, fire rescue, EMS portion of that, animal control, all communication, all that is only 67%. So that's actually really, really good. The other thing is that from a budgetary standpoint, so many of these things are supposed to have, I don't know the county's budget in and out backwards, obviously, like I do ours. But in the sheriff's office, for instance, it comes with 23, our funds come from, I think, 23 separate locations. And each one of them have a different restriction. They have different things you can use the money for. I'm assuming the boards is like that as well, too, of their $270 million they have. I don't know exactly how they do that, but I suspect a lot of it has certain restrictions on it, if you will. But yeah, I actually encourage people to look at that because I think it's important to understand the budget and you understand. I think ad valorem wise, the last time we checked, the actual law enforcement side is down, would be probably 27% of total county budget, which is really good, really good. We're in the bottom 15 in the state, 10 or 15 in the state percentage of ad valorem. That's really strong. That's really strong. And so one of the things I always tell people, if you want to cut, I could cut my budget $20 million tomorrow. Bam. I could transfer any responsibility that's not statutorily required by law. But guess what? Somebody's got to do that. Somebody has to do EMS. Somebody has to do fire. Somebody has to run the jail. Somebody has to do animal control. So you got to figure out who you want to run these things. But the costing of it, it is what it is.
Yeah.
I actually like those kind of questions because I think it's important for people to understand their budget. Mm-hmm. And the truth of the matter is, if somebody doesn't understand their budget, that's problematic. You expect your elected officials to know their budget.
Sure. That's a great question.
Yeah, I think it is too. But again, I think everything has to be context.
Yeah. You
have to know, and if the person in charge of a budget doesn't know it, I'd have a problem with that.
Yeah. Or or doesn't know how to delineate the difference to people who
absolutely.
may not know.
Yeah, sure.
Kelly Lehman is saying, amazing containment by your fire rescue folks and all responding personnel. There was a brush fire, wildfire, woods fire in Freeport last night. She said that one could have spread fast, and that area doesn't get prescribed burns very often, so it was really impressive.
Yeah, and thank you, Kelly, for bringing that up, because I think it's one of the things that's important when you realize from Walton County Fire Rescue. And again, for those of you that don't know, there's a little delineation. South of the bay is South Walton Fire District. It's a district down here. North of the bay, for the majority of the county, we provide all of EMS. We are the fire and assist pretty much everyone in the county north of the bay. There's still Definiak Springs Fire Department, right? And there are Argyle and Liberty volunteers. But it takes a group effort to do these things. I mean, there's a lot of work involved with it, but I think you have a very professional fire rescue, in Walton County Fire Rescue. I'm super proud of these men and women.
Yeah. Candace is asking about the graffiti artist who left tags all over Rosemary and Inlet, and if they were ever caught, charged with anything.
So we've actually identified some of the graffiti from a couple of different locations. Also the park, if you guys remember, there was somebody actually videoed in the park as well. And so nobody has identified that person yet. Is there a propensity for it being a tourist? It is. I don't think it is. Some of our folks think it was somebody here for a week or so, but I tend to think it's somebody local. But so the short answer is not yet, but we'll see if that pops back up.
Yeah. Great. And then I think as a follow-up to your question earlier about tracking the vocational programs and their success, I think they asked about the numbers of how many have been rearrested, and then you mentioned that. Yeah. And then they replied, would love to see those stats on how many have come back to the jail. Yeah. We hope that that's a reduction in recidivism in practice.
Well, so we use and again, context matters here. It's kind of like I was talking about with the budget. I could manipulate the numbers in anything, right? If you're not careful, and I really, really, really dislike that when people do that with a budget or they do it with recidivism. If you're trying to make yourself look good, you play with these numbers. For instance, I could use the state of Florida uses recidivism. They will tell you that they have this really low recidivism rate. Well, the definition for that is they didn't come back to jail inside of a year. That doesn't necessarily denote success for me. I think you need to go longer than a year to consider it to be successful. And so I think what we're going to use for recidivism rate is something that looks more like 3 years.
Yeah.
And that to me is probably a little more indicative. If you haven't been back in 3 years, I think we're doing pretty good. But if it's 6 months to a year, I mean, I'm not sure that tells us anything.
Sure. Kimberly Waters, were any of the kids ever arrested for that party that broke into the house? We've discussed that. I'm catching up on questions.
Yeah, sorry.
We did discuss that earlier in the show. Alicia says, I was an EMT for 18 years in Pennsylvania. My certification was current 2 years of the 4 that I lived in Florida. If the last part made sense, would I have to take the EMT program all over again? Or are there other options to be certified in Florida?
I actually think with EMT, you're going to have to get recertified.
Yeah. Because it's a license.
It's a licensure.
Yeah. Great. And then, so Brittany Cool is asking, so if an officer or deputy want to do the No Shave November, they have the right to.
They're already doing it. Trust me.
They're already doing
the bane of my existence.
Yeah. Yes. Liz Wilson doing great work. Walton County Sheriff's Office. Elizabeth Parker, thank you for taking good care of the elderly gentleman from Panama City Beach who was confused and lost. I do know him, but I know the experience and the kindness of the people who recognized that there was an issue, and your team's work touched my heart. Thank you. That was Deputy Charlie Adamus. Yeah. And there was a couple who stayed with him. He was at the gas station near Dune Lakes Elementary School. And they stayed with him until his wife came. So,
which is fabulous.
Yes.
That's why this is such a great community to live, right?
Yes. Linda, can you please explain to me how a deputy can target someone by going around 4 cars to get to them, following them through Freeport and pull them over? They walk to their truck already knowing who they are, asking for license, insurance, registration, and give them a ticket for unknowingly driving without a license 3 days before it was supposedly suspended.
All right, that
I'm
sounds
not
like
sure.
there's
Very
probably a very
question.
specific personal, probably some personal interaction maybe that you may know about that I obviously don't. But the short answer is they probably ran their tag or recognized them as somebody that had a license problem, ran their tag, and that's how they would know that before they got there. but you're being so specific that it would be better if you actually just sent us an email and I can have your district lieutenant Bart Smith look at it and see if there was any issue or problem. But if it's somebody they knew that didn't have a driver's license and knew that nothing about that would cause me major problems. So
yeah. I didn't mean to, but I skipped over this one. Brenda Bishop said, I recently had a vacation at the wonderful Adkinson Inn. She's talking about the jail, and was actually being held for Washington County.
Okay.
My bond was preset, and Walton can accept bond for Washington. So why was I told I had to be transferred first? I was held for 3 days, transferred out to the neighboring county before I could make bond. It was wasted tax dollars, if you ask me, not to mention that I had already had an appointment to walk through my bond in Washington
yeah, that
County.
would be a waste of our time too, obviously, if it was. However, I don't know the specifics of it, so me saying that wouldn't. I could tell you something I may be technically incorrect. Sometimes it has to do with the first appearance that you have to be there. I don't know. There may be something specific to that bond. It may be a Washington County only. These are things I just don't know, but don't mind checking out. You can ask for Major John Mooring at the jail, and we'll get an answer to that question.
Yeah.
But anytime you do that, I can tell you, anytime you deal with the judges, they want things specific ways. If there was a reason to hold you, so be it. If there wasn't, then that's kind of a waste of time.
Yeah. Richard Yohe wants to know how the traffic unit is coming along and if we have any plans to increase that.
Yeah, we actually have a plan to increase that. I think in January we're looking to add another deputy sheriff to the traffic unit, which is, go back to budget for a second. That's actually funded by the TDC south of the Bay, which is kind of interesting. It's one of the other funding sources. It's doing really well. I mean, that has had some real effect. We're going to see that expand over the next couple of years too.
Veronica Benjamin, thank you for answering my question. Glad that I can go search for those records. Yep. And then I'm going down. Brittany wants to know if we're looking at the effects from not having an emergency room locally. Are we looking at stats and the effect locally?
The short answer is yes. I mean, we're trying to figure out, and we're trying to be fair about this, because at the end, there's nobody to blame. This is not one of the other things I think everybody wants to blame somebody about this. But this is a situation where I don't really care. I just need the problem solved. We got to figure out how to solve the problem. So let's just say some magic happens and some company comes in and says, I want to build a new emergency room. You're talking about a couple of years. If they don't buy or use the existing, or if the existing hospital doesn't open that emergency room, then we have to wait for something to be built. And there's no way, shape, or form that's going to be done in less than a couple of years. So this is a real risk to us. I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it and tell you it's not, because it is a risk. And really, just from an operating standpoint, this has probably tapped us several $1 million. I would think a couple $1 million right off the bat, between adding the 7th, potentially adding the 8th. You know, we're going to have to figure out how to solve this problem.
Yeah.
Everything involved this is pretty significant.
Yeah. Addison Newby, this isn't a question, but someone put a sticker on my car over my pride flag sticker, and it made me feel really unsafe. If somebody's putting a sticker on your car,
you know, listen. First of all, the deputy sheriffs are here to serve all citizens in this county.
Yeah.
And if you have a concern, if there's somewhere that you can absolutely call us. That's what we're here for. We want to make sure that you feel safe in your community to the best of our ability to do so. There are a lot of people. I don't know that I would add extra meaning to it. It may or may have been nothing to it. It may have been somebody being a jerk. It may have been X, Y, Z. I don't know what it is. They certainly shouldn't be doing that. And I want to make sure that every member of our community knows that they can pick up and call a deputy sheriff. That's what we're here for. We're here to serve.
Ted Brown, I'm so glad Ted asked this, because so he said, what happened at the jail intake? The mugshots are looking horrible and wonky lately. And there's a reason for that, because they've been under construction. And
can I just say, this is the first time I've ever heard somebody complain about the quality of
the mugshots.
Yeah, we're not glamour shot, Ted. So yeah, all joking
but
aside,
we usually do have very good mugshots, because we have a corporal at the jail who does a fantastic job. But however,
we had to redo our booking section to try and manage. So we just finished a remodel in the booking. That's where we intake people when they first come to jail, trying to be compliant with Florida law and the way we handle everything from juveniles to separation of male and females, and to be more efficient in the way we process. They actually did a really good job. That work it took a hot minute, but man, it was done, and it was
and it's beautiful. So I just had a conversation with.
I don't know if that's the word I would use,
Luke
but it's appropriate.
In booking.
Yeah,
it's
beautiful, baby.
I mean, the construction is really nice, and it gives the detention deputy some pride when they come in, and it's clean, and it looks fantastic.
If I was being booked in, I don't know if I'd go with beautiful, but yes, it's nice.
No, but from a detention deputy standpoint, I think it does. So Ted, I think that they're still getting kind of set up in there.
They're still,
but we'll get them. Yeah, we'll get them back
Absolutely.
Looking nice, and like I said, Greg Bradham is fantastic, and he'll have them looking sporty and like, what did you say, glamour shots?
Yeah, it's not glamour, not quite glamour shots yet,
before no long.
Yeah.
Ollie Walker.
Uh-huh.
Is there any update on what started the house fire in Seagrove about a month ago? It was reported that it started on the porch and the origin was under investigation. The fire marshal's office would have been investigating that.
Right. CFO Petrona's office oversees the state fire marshal's office, and they probably have been in contact with South Walton Fire District and Chief Crawford and those folks. If it got to the criminal point, or if it is a criminal investigation, they may choose to make an arrest themselves, or they may in fact notify us, and we'll kind of go from there. I will tell you, just from a fire rescue standpoint, we are getting ready to go online with a fire inspection unit, which is north of the bay, which, quite frankly, I don't think it's been since maybe 2003. It should have been done. It wasn't done. Doesn't matter. We're going to solve the problem. And so we're getting ready to get moved forward with some fire inspections. And I mention that only because, A, it's a life safety, B, it needs to be done, and C, I think that lends ourselves to ultimately moving into the arson investigation world. I think that's important. Because when you're relying on the fire marshal office, they're having to come a distance sometimes. And many times you'll have multiple different arson investigators having to work in the county. We would like to get some level of continuity between that. Some of you may remember, probably 12, 13 years ago now, we had a series of arsons in the Paxton area, up around.
It was Paxton, and then we had some in Red Bay.
We did, and there was two separate. We had a home that we thought was extremely suspicious circumstances where a couple's home was burned down. But we've had a series of arsons at one time, really up in the Paxton community. I remember specifically that the more you can keep that in house and you have local knowledge, I think the better you are. So that's part of our overall expansion of our fire rescue services.
Great, Jeff Jackson. I want to say Walton County Fire Rescue has come a long way and has made great strides and great service. Hope to see fire medics expand in every district in the North End. To have a guaranteed fire service in every district would be great. You guys are professionals and much appreciated. You guys have great leadership, and their chiefs and the officers keep up the great work. We appreciate you, Jeff.
Listen, super proud of the work the men at Walton County Fire Rescue are doing, men and women are doing. It's really two services, right? Because if you look at the way we operate our service in Freeport, it's almost like a municipality. Mm-hmm. And then, your areas where it's much more rural and a lot of distance. So there's a lot of challenges involved in that. Mm-hmm. And believe me, when firefighters want a new piece of equipment, they don't get out of bed unless it's $1 million. So we're investing pretty heavy in, ladder trucks, believe it or not, are super expensive. I'll even circle back to the budget just for a second, because I think this is really interesting. We just had to put in an order for our fire truck. Yes, almost $1 million, a little over $1 million. 2.5 years is when we're expected to get it. So not this budget cycle, not the next budget cycle, but the budget cycle after. And we have to put the order in now for 2.5 years. That's unbelievable. Yeah. So if you can start a fire truck business, that's what you clearly need to be doing. If you're making me wait 2.5 years and you're wanting me to guarantee payment, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yolanda Decker has a great question, and something that I probably should have brought up sooner. Is the sheriff's office doing Santa Patrol this year? And if so, how do families sign up?
Yes, we are. And listen, I wish I could say I started under Sheriff McMillan, 25 plus years ago, 30 years ago. Many years ago, you guys remember Deputy Danny Garner ran it for a lot of years. Danny, over at Code Enforcement now, retired from us, and I always joke he outlasted 5 sheriffs, which is pretty impressive. But it's a great program. We want to continue that, where we identify families, and just provide a little assistance here at the holiday time so that their children have a good Christmas. Corey, I think, where's the contact for Santa Patrol?
So here's the deal with Santa Patrol. So if you have school-aged kids, we want you to go to your school resource deputy. So how we vet the families that we assist with Santa Patrol is through our school resource deputies, because they know who's in need in their schools.
Right.
So we really rely on them to bring us families, and then we reach out to the families and sort of assist them in that way. That's not to say that those with kids who are preschool age can't email us,
Sure,
and we'll, and we recently got reached out to by the Hilton. Maggie Weaver and her team over there are asking if they can assist with families. So I think the community really comes together, and if you're in need, we will help. So just send us an email. You can email us at pio@waltonso.org, but we really are going to rely on the school resource deputies. So if you do have school age kids, we just encourage you to reach out to them first. But Tammy Godwin and the Lieutenant Ben Dowdy over the school resource deputies are doing a yeoman's job.
What we probably need to do too is really consider, we kind of branded that name 30 years ago, but now it's expanded with our fire rescue folks being heavily involved, and maybe we could give a shout out to Chief Crawford and those folks at South Walton, maybe get them involved as well too, and we can all work together, because at the end of the day, that's what this is about.
Sure.
Kids.
Sure. Ted Brown has another question. He's asking, can we get 2 flock cameras in the Black Creek area? It's much needed, especially late in the evenings.
Yeah, I mean, we're working to do what's appropriate where we can, and we're just there's a lot of needs for sure.
Yes. We're caught up on questions. I know that's crazy.
Wow.
We've been on almost an hour.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
But I gotta say, the audio is great, and
Nobody complained about the audio?
No, not one person. The only thing they complained about the audio was about the county's meetings.
Oh yeah.
We can't solve all the problems.
How long have we been doing this?
Since I've been here.
7 years?
8 years.
8
Going
years.
on 8.
This may be the first time somebody didn't complain about the audio.
Don't say that.
Yeah, it's awesome. Just keep it to yourself now. I feel good.
Yeah,
now.
don't jinx me.
Yeah, don't
because it could fall off at any moment. But if you guys have any other questions, what else do we want to cover? We haven't gone on since Operation Hans Gruber.
Oh yeah, so wow, how about that?
what a name.
Yeah, yeah.
Still can't get over it.
Yeah, so
it's almost Christmas time.
By the way, so for me, where we arrested, I think there ended up being 30. There ended up being 30 plus people arrested for conspiracy to traffic cocaine in Walton County. And sometimes this is a mistake I make, because I know the full story, right? And sometimes to me, what I think is obvious, I forget that other people want to engage with it, because somebody said, well, only 3,000 grams of cocaine. Okay, first of all, let's start with that. Only 3,000. You wasted a lot of money. It was a multi-kilo a month operation. That was the cocaine that we took in at the time of the arrest. The disruption to this is hundreds of kilos, hundreds of pounds, if you want to put it that way, cocaine over the course of that time. We just didn't say it that way. It didn't occur to me. I thought it was obvious that there was more cocaine coming in than the 3,000 grams we got, and so sometimes I make that mistake too, and you need to be careful. But it was kind of funny. We go, well, what a waste of money for 3,000 grams of cocaine. I literally about rolled out of my chair. I was like, man, we're missing the obvious here.
Yeah.
So they didn't just start it the next day.
And a lot of hard work, on the federal side of the house, which really opened the door for a lot of state charges.
Well, and I think what's important about this, we pride ourselves on getting successful prosecutions. We're very hard with Ginger Madden's office and try to make sure that that they know we bring them quality cases. And the U.S. Attorney, Jason Cootie, Mr. Cootie was here, and that's great to have him involved. And I think you heard him say what a well-done operation this is, working with the Drug Enforcement Agency and our surrounding agencies to assist. And that's a cool thing. To me, that's a really, I say cool thing, maybe a better choice of words, but, that I can pick up the phone and call Sheriff Aiden and say, hey, we need 10 Okaloosa County deputies to assist us in picking these people up. That's a great thing. I mean, that's the kind of relation. Or I can pick up the phone and call Sheriff Ford and say, X. Or I can call Chief Hurley in Defuniak or Chief Talaments in Panama City Beach. These are the things that are important in building relationships. And when all these folks are doing that, you're getting the best use of your tax dollars. People are being professional. That's important to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else that we want to talk about?
No, I mean, I think, golly, that's a lot of stuff, right? I mean,
we covered a lot.
We covered a lot of ground. We were talking about a couple things we wanted to get started with, but at this point, I've kind of forgot.
Yeah.
So as long as we've answered
We got Santa Patrol. Halloween's down.
Cocaine distribution. You know what's funny though, and I never ceases to amaze me. You can crack a multi-kilo cocaine, and people want to ask you about a house party 6 months ago, or a golf cart. Not that they're not important things, but again, I go back to this. These are the kind of things that sometimes I get wrapped up in dealing with certain things and don't realize. You know, for me, I think about people's lives and you know what's proximal, what's going on right now. But it's important to keep up with all this stuff, and we try to do that. You know, we try to stay on top of this stuff. We are going to be back in a couple of weeks if we're and good Lord willing, we'll still be here. Will be the Thanksgiving edition or a little bit after that maybe, and then we'll start getting ready for our holidays and it's good stuff.
And you know, with Thanksgiving coming up, we do have a kind of a hurricane on the horizon right now that may or may not impact the area as far as wind and all of those things. And we're not out of the weeds yet with that.
Right.
With hurricane season. So
I wish that was the case.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
That'd be great.
Christopher Tompkins is saying, can we get a street sweep soon and get some drug dealers off the streets at the lower level? That's really, you did see a lot of that. And we've got some people agreeing with your assessment of what everything's proximal, right?
Yeah,
it's perception's reality.
Perception, I even go, I go all the way back in about the house party. We had a murder that week that we solved, and an officer-involved shooting. Where somebody tried to kill our deputies. Oh, that was the other thing too.
Yeah.
I just thought about the state's attorney's office, which we knew this, but we appreciate those folks and the Florida Department of Law Enforcement reviewing our actions. We asked them to do that, Sheriff Aiden and myself, because there was a lot of bullets flying around on I-10. But they came back and said, listen, the deputy in Okaloosa and Walton and the Highway Patrol were completely justified use of force, which we knew that was going to be the case. But we appreciate their professionalism in getting that out and just saying that your deputies did exactly what they were supposed to do. And they did a heck of a job under some pretty intense circumstances.
A 60-plus mile pursuit where they were getting shot at.
Yeah, where they were being shot at. Absolutely correct. And so... Yeah, so we appreciate that cooperation across the board as well.
Yeah, and I would be remiss if I didn't let us get off of here before you tell folks that we are hiring.
Always, we are hiring. Listen, here's the thing. Somebody said, it's always a struggle hiring. Here's the trick. We don't lower our standards for anyone. We're not going to just fill positions. We have a philosophy at the sheriff's office, whether you come to us and you're in fire rescue and you're going to be an EMT or a paramedic in that realm, or whether you're child protective investigations, or whether you're in dispatch, or whether you're at the Walton County Jail, or you are on the road, or you're at animal control. We have a philosophy. We want the best and brightest. We are not going to lower standards to get people. We're going to try very hard to hire attitude and teach aptitude, right? You hire character, you teach skills. But we would love, if you're interested in working what I think is one of the top organizations in the state of Florida, take a look at us, waltonso.org. We're hiring in all disciplines, and we want to work with you. If you think this, you want to be part of something that makes a difference in an agency that is well respected across the state, I think this is us, and so we'd love to take a look at you.
Sheriff, you got the website right.
Did I? God,
did you cheat? Did you look at it?
There's a 50-50 chance I get that wrong every time.
You actually got it right that time. That was impressive. Of all the things you have to worry about.
Yeah, right. I have my moments. So
we'll be back in a couple weeks, maybe after Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. So obviously, anything that you guys need, Corey will follow up with any of the questions we have, and then if something pops up, always shoot us an email. If we missed your question, we didn't dodge your question. I don't actually see the questions. Corey reads them, and and if we didn't answer it, or we didn't answer it, I won't say correctly, but or maybe we didn't give you a full answer that you think we should have, you just follow back up and we'll try and answer it for you. I can't guarantee you'll like the answer. Now that's the other thing too. I can't guarantee success. I'll guarantee effort. And we'll go forward with that. Any final questions before we get out of here? Thoughts, comments? No. Thank you much for allowing us to serve, and we will see you guys shortly after Thanksgiving.